have our performance charge tube and intake tube installed, so we're going to do a dyno run. Then we're going to start to turn up the boost. Previous runs, we were 148, 149. The first run started out a little bit cold at 153, so I'd say we're pretty solid with what we tested this morning. One of the things we wanted to do on this Turbo-S is we've taken the stock turbo and we wanted to turn it up. Now factory is running 14.5 pounds of boost at our elevation, and we wanted to run it up to 17. Well, we really have to really stretch and push to make it go up to 17, and then we don't see a real noticeable horsepower increase when we do that. The bigger turbo, the efficiency that it has, doesn't just help us to make more horsepower. One of the big advantages to the bigger turbo is that as we go up in altitude, we have more room to be able to turn it up more. The pressure ratio is the difference between our ambient air pressure and the charge air pressure that we boost our engine charge air up to. And so the bigger that gap becomes, the larger the pressure ratio, the bigger turbo you need to overcome that pressure ratio. So you can actually make a smaller turbo perform well at a low altitude where the ambient air pressure is really high, but when you come up into a higher altitude where the ambient air pressure goes down, and then you have to bring your charge air pressure up to recover the horsepower loss, the gap actually gets bigger. And so then a small turbo really becomes crippled right there. And we're starting to see that on the stock turbo, even at 4,700 feet. The factory is really pushing everything they can out of this turbo. We can get a couple more pounds of boost out of it, but when we do, the horsepower isn't very significant. So when we do these just tuner upgrades, it's not just about turning the turbo up. We actually have to tune the engine up in some other ways, fueling and timing and etc., to kind of get it to come up to the horsepower level that it needs to at altitude. This is one of the advantages that we have at Boondocker, is that we test and tune most of the time through the summer here at St. Anthony. So we're above 4,700 feet, and that's always easy to tune for that and make horsepower. If we're making horsepower there, it's easy to turn it down at sea level. Sometimes what guys will do is they'll go down to sea level, they'll turn a turbo up, they'll really get the thing rocking, and then they come up to altitude. And so maybe you're from the Phoenix area and you ride Glamis in the summertime, you get everything running on the sand really great, but then in the wintertime you're running in Glamis. In the summertime you go up to the Cinders or you go up to Flagstaff, you get higher elevation, and it just doesn't run that good, and it's because the turbo is way outside of its efficiency range at those higher altitudes. So one of the great things to kind of point out, so over the last 3 days, we've been working we've got a freer flowing muffler. We've clutched, so we're not running 8,300 to 8,400 RPMs. Now we're up around 8,600, 8,700 RPMs. And we've improved the back shift on the clutch. So that's when we get out of the throttle and back in it recovers fast. We're in the right gear at the right time, and it really sounds great. This motor really sounds really good above 8,500 RPMs. Everything sounds like it's going a lot faster, but the dyno is not showing a whole bunch more power. We've even turned the stock turbo up. We've turned that boost pressure up and kind of just pushed it to its maximum, but the horsepower is really pretty limited. There's not a whole lot of gains to be made. This buggy's running at its potential right out of the box. We've made it sound better. We brought the RPMs up. We've made it shift better. All of that stuff is great. But what we really want to do is we want to make this buggy faster. And so at this point, what we have to do to make this buggy go faster is we need to put a bigger turbo on it. So that's where we're going to put next, is we're going to put that Dominator turbo on there. Hey guys, Junior at Boondocker. We're a few days into this RZR Turbo-S project. Today what we did do is we went ahead and took the stock 32-inch tires off. That's what we've been dynoing in those high 140s at. And we put our regular dyno tires on. These are the same tires that we've been running for several years now. All our RZR 1000s are dynoed on these tires, all our XP turbos. So anything that we've published has had this same set of tires bolted onto it. They're nothing special, but they are a good baseline to kind of show us what's going on. We wanted to make sure that that we didn't have a RZR that was a little bit down on power compared to everything else that we've been running, because our horsepower numbers were lower than what we have published in the past as far as stock numbers. So we bolted our dyno tires on and we came up to 157 horsepower is where we're at. So that's the baseline we're going to work on from here on out. Now that 157 horsepower does include our muffler. We've bolted that on it now, and we've brought our clutching, put our clutch kit on it and brought our clutching RPM, our operating peak RPM, up to about 80, just about 8,700 RPMs. In fact, looking at it right here, looks like we're 8675. So we have all these components on this. We've got a good baseline. We're 157 horsepower is what we'll call it. We're gonna go ahead and bolt our favorite part on right now. We're gonna bolt the Dominator turbo on. Okay, right here we have the Dominator turbo. Cody has the stock one out and has removed the turbo bracket. So it goes right back on the stock bracket. You can kind of get a good look at this. It's a little bit bigger on the major diameter here. The ID is bigger as well, and then you can see that there's a billet compressor wheel down inside there. That compressor wheel is quite a bit bigger than the stock one. The exhaust side, so you can see here that it looks exactly like the stock turbo. The stock manifold bolts up exactly in the same place. This manifold bolts up exactly in the same place as the stock one. The exhaust wheel is the same size as the stock, but the port, we call it the AR ratio, right, is the size of the port right here in the housing is larger than stock. So this is better than just a wheel replacement turbo where you would take a used turbo and replace the wheel and machine out the compressor housing, because you're still limited to the exhaust housing. So this is a bigger exhaust housing and a bigger compressor housing and a bigger compressor wheel. So along with the other parts that we've already installed, this completes the package, so let's get it put in. So that's pretty awesome if you can bolt just the turbo on and make 10 more horsepower.
Without the tuner.
No tuner, no clutching. You wouldn't have to do anything. Just the turbo is 10 horsepower. That's what we saw today. So I expected 5. That's what we had seen previous. Thought we had seen previous, but it's a solid 10. $199 and $201. That's an average of 200 on pump gas.